Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me today on the agentXcel podcast. And I get a lot of questions about internet leads and what we do in our company as far as like pay-per-click and who we hire to do that, how we convert those leads. So I thought today would be a good time to bring on the guest, Philip Pasma. He owns Asterisk Marketing, and he is the one who I hired about 3.5 years ago to start doing my online marketing for me to bring in leads to my website. And so I brought him on, kind of talked about his journey of how he started the company, how he started working with realtors, and then how we ultimately met up and he started helping me with my marketing and closing more deals. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. Today on the agentXcel podcast, we have our guest, Philip Pasma. What's up, Philip?
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
Good, man. Did I say your name right?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right.
Right on, buddy. Hey, thanks for jumping on today. I mean, before we start this, I guess I'll just go into like my backstory and how I met you, and then I'll just ask you some questions. So you
Sure.
run a pay-per-click company. And so it was probably about, did I say that right? Is that how you would categorize yourself, or no?
I would say
Marketing company, I should say.
Yeah, digital
Okay.
marketing for real estate agents. PPC is one of the most popular services, but we do offer some other stuff: SEO, content, social media.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you clarified that. So
Yeah.
it was probably 3 years ago. I was telling my wife, I was like, hey, we need to start closing more transactions, getting a lot of referrals, right? And that's always been our bread and butter. I said, hey, we want to, start getting leads from other sources. And we looked into, like Zillow, we looked into doing like pay-per-click. And then we just went down this, gathering data from other realtors who were doing the pay-per-click game, and ran across your company. I remember getting on the phone with you, and then, the rest is history. We've been doing pay-per-click for probably 3.5 years, I believe,
I think
through
so.
through you. And it's been really fun. We get right now, I think we're getting about 19 to 20 leads a day. And we've learned to grow a good section of our business from it. So that's how I was introduced to you and started using your services. So, and this is stuff that I don't even know about, is because I never asked this when we started working together, nor did I need to know. But now for the podcast sake, what got you into like marketing, understanding pay-per-click, and then forming a company that was designed to help realtors?
Yeah. So I kind of stumbled upon the real estate niche. So I went to school for marketing. I started working as in a marketing agency where I kind of got experience with PPC and SEO and some other stuff. And then I decided I would rather work for myself. And I just had an opportunity where someone was going to come with me. So then I started my own company. And then at that point, when you start your own company, you'll literally work with anybody, right? Anybody that will give you some money. So I would just work with any type of businesses. And then I had a buddy who was a home builder, so started working with him. And then he introduced me to his real estate, his realtor that worked for him. So then I started working with this realtor. He was very involved in the community of Real Geeks, which obviously you're very familiar with. And then he kind of started referring me, and then I would get a couple here and there. And then over the past couple of years, it just grew and grew until now we work with, I think, 250 or 300 real estate agents throughout North America.
Wow. That's a lot of people you're doing some marketing for, huh?
Yeah. No, it's we've been blessed for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting how I found it's interesting how when you find somebody who's, looks or is super successful in an industry, when you talk to them, how their backstory of how a lot of time it was almost like a stumbled into, like you said, it was like you got into like the marketing side of it, like that's what you wanted to, but it's interesting how your niche was something that just, it happened and then you just lean into it. Now I think people would know you for being, marketing for realtors, the
100%.
Real Geeks platform, which I use, which we'll talk about later. But I mean, when I met you, that's all I thought you had ever did. So it's funny how like you just stumbled into it and then leaned into it and took over.
Yeah, and it's before I got into real estate, all I heard was from other gurus is like, get into a niche, right? Find your niche and life will be so much easier. You focus on one thing, you get extremely good at it. but I was like, how do I find one? Like, do I just pick a random one? And also, like, I don't want to turn down other business, right? I want any business that will come my way. But now that I've found real estate and I've become good at it, it's like there's no other way for me. If I was to start another business, I would focus on like one thing, right? If I was to start another marketing company, it would be like just one thing, like roofers, and that's all I would focus on, because it's rinse and repeat once you know the formulas. I think that's any business, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's probably like you actually learning. I think every industry, like marketing to get people through the door is one thing, but you almost have to know, the business owner's pain points. And I think once you deal with the same exact business owner over and over, I mean, we're all dealing, especially in the real estate community, we're dealing with primarily the same exact pain points that you can kind of solve for them. So what got you, like so how long have you had Asterisk? That's what we should start off with. So your Asterisk is your company. How long have you had that company?
2017.
Okay.
So 5 years.
Okay. Right on. And so let's go to the beginnings. Like for somebody listening right now, they probably hear the word PPC first, which is say that's pay-per-click. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, let's go from the elementary of what is pay-per-click.
Yeah. So it is when someone goes onto a search engine. So obviously Google is the most popular one, but it can also be Bing or Yelp, or not Yelp, but it can be Yahoo. And when they type in a search, so for us, real estate, it's like homes for sale in Phoenix. You see the search results page come up, and at the top, you see these ads. And every time you click on one of those ads, you are charging that company or advertisers, say 50 cents. So that's where the pay per click comes from. So these are ads that people are running to try to get people to their website to accomplish a goal. So and then below that, it's called the organic listings, which those you could click 1,000 times and it wouldn't cost the company any money, but the company did something to please Google in order to get to that spot.
Okay. So your company gets somebody to go to a business owner's website, right? So somebody goes into Google, they search, and then you're getting them up, you're getting them onto, you're getting them onto Google so that they click and then go to their website, correct?
Right. Because so organically, it can take a very long time to start ranking on the first page for a keyword, right? Some words, it's nearly impossible. For example, like Phoenix homes for sale, like it's Zillow, it's Trulia, it's all these big players. Whereas with ads, so pay-per-click, we can create a campaign for you and say by tomorrow, you can start showing up on the first page when people type in Phoenix homes for sale. You could show up at the very top. And again, like you said, the idea is they go to your website, and then either they create an account or they reach out to you. They want to go view a home. So there's different goals involved, but to get you to your website, to get you a lead that you can potentially work with.
Okay. So someone says, hey, I want to hire Philip's company to get get traffic to my website. Now let's go to the website portion of it. I'm sure there's a lot of realtors out there right now that they're like, I don't really, I have a pretty sketchy website, or it's nothing fancy. What would that look like for them?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, because we get that a lot too. And we get people with different websites coming to us. And for us, we like to work with people who have IDX enabled website. So they're able to show all of the listings that are in their MLS board. We really like to work with people who have specific platforms. So Real Geeks is a popular one, Chime, Seer Interactive, even KV Core. There's some other ones out there, but you want to have a website where people can search like they do on Zillow or Realtor. And then you also want to have a website where it has like a lead capture. That's where you have basically a pop-up that says, hey, create a free account. And that's where we get their name, information, phone number that you can then call and try to build rapport and establish a relationship with.
Yeah.
Not all websites are created equal. We get a lot of times where people are like, oh, I have a website, just use that. And it's like, well, we could use that, but your cost per lead is going to be $100 where it should be $10.
Yeah. And that's where someone, I would just suggest people just call you and talk this through with you, because like I said, I've been doing this, I think, for 3.5 years with you. And I can explain pay-per-click to somebody from a very elementary level, but I actually want the listener to know that like you can jump into something and actually do really well at it and not know all the technicalities behind the scenes. Like you were just like, I learned about your company through like the Real Geeks because I just want to let everyone know I use Real Geeks as my website. I believe I was in a Facebook group where a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of Real Geeks users are in there. Someone referred me to you, and that's how we like linked up. But I just want everybody to know, like, you can actually grow this into something pretty successful by not knowing all the back end of it. And I think that's what's super important is how many people are trying to, they want to research this for 4 years and figure out all the technicalities, or they want to do it, on their own, which is fine. Probably not going to be super successful at it out of the gate doing it that way. But, you can just really like jump in, hire people, and get leads to come to the door and then learn that art of converting them and closing deals as you go.
100%. And that's where you should be putting your energy. A lot of people is like, we get the leads, you focus on converting them. Of course, it's like we want you to know about PPC, right? And we'll educate you. We want you to have a good idea of what it is, but you don't need to know every single detail because, or else, like that's why you hire companies such as ourselves, because that's what we do all day, every day.
Yeah. So you get lead to come to the website. They've got to have a website. So now let's talk about like marketing budgets, because I'm sure people are like, okay, this has got to be really expensive to play this game. So like, when somebody comes to you, what do you suggest that their marketing budget is to begin with, to kind of get a sample size on how to scale that?
Yeah, it certainly can range. That's the nice thing about pay-per-click. You can spend, you could spend as little or you can spend as much as you want. It can scale and grow with you. I know that's what happened. We kind of went up and up as you added more team members. Sorry. So we recommend starting with at least 500 a month. It's kind of, so there's a couple portions. That there's the ad spend. So that is the money that goes directly to Google and Bing to run the ads, right? And then if you're paying for a company, they're going to have a management. So you're going to be paying them X amount to manage the ads. So $500 a month in most marketplaces, that'll get you like 30 to 50 leads a month, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And then what we've also done is, so we've dealt with hundreds of clients over the past years, and we started gathering the data to see what are the most successful agents spending. So the single agents, the ones that are getting the greatest returns, typically spend $1,000 a month. That's like the sweet spot for most agents. And then they scale as they want more leads or they grow their team. But that's a really good number. Because you got to realize not all of these leads, because a lot of people will be like, so with $1,000, say you get 100 leads a month. They're like, well, that's way too much. I can't handle all those leads. But the fact is, since we're using a lead capture, you're going to have somebody who puts in fake information, right? You're going to have people that just don't pick up your phone call. That's just the nature of the business. So when it comes down to it, you're not getting like 100 good leads, right? Because at $10 a lead, like then everyone in the world would be doing it and the cost would actually skyrocket.
Right.
So it's not 100 good leads. So you need to be able to have a solid sample to work with.
Yeah, because I've talked to a lot of realtors about pay-per-click, and some of them come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to do like 100 or $200," and I just tell them like, what does that really ever solve? Getting like 6 leads a month. Maybe it's just my style. I'm more of an all-in person, but I'm like, okay, you're going to get 6 leads, but yeah, you're right. Like that's duly noted as these aren't all people that answer their phones. Like if it was 6 people that answer their phone and were ready to buy today, then yep, I would be like, that's exactly how you solve this. So, I just want to interject in there so I can come from like the realtor perspective for the listeners. And it's, for example, if 100 leads come through your door, and I don't have my spreadsheet up right now, so I'm just using fake numbers, right. But in the ballpark, if 100 leads come through my door, like let's say 100 leads came through my door tomorrow. I mean, it might be 15 that actually pick. If I called all 100 of them tomorrow, it might be 15 that pick up the phone, and out of those 15 that pick up the phone, there might have been 4 good conversations, four that were good, like, hey, I'm moving next year when I retire from Illinois to Arizona, like a good solid conversation where they're not ready now, but definitely someone that I want to keep in touch with. And then out of those 100, there'll be one person that is like legitimately landed on my website that was, hey, I'm wanting to buy a house right now, need a realtor. Thank you for calling me. When can we go look? I'm pre-qualified and you're closing a house in 2 weeks. So it's
Yeah.
like every 100, 150, like that's going to be that's pretty much going to be what happens. So like, yeah, you do need a good amount of leads to come to the door, because if you called 100 today, if only 12 good conversations happen, it's not as if every one of these people that come through are wanting to buy a house.
No, yeah. And
So,
so like conversion rate really, obviously it depends on a lot of factors, depends on the agents and stuff like that, but you see like a 0.5 to 2 to 3% conversion rate. That's generally where people are somewhere in between like 1%. But then the thing is too, typically that just increases over time, right? So year two, your conversion rate goes up because you have so many people from year one now ready to buy. Because obviously real estate it can take a while, right? It can take, so you're building a database of so much potential in there. And people, a lot of agents kind of get a little bit frustrated because they don't, first 2-3 months, they're not really seeing a lot come out of it. Whereas month 4, they get a closing. Month 5, they start talking to someone, and then it just snowballs. And then they become repeat customers. So it is, even though you start getting leads essentially right away, it's still a long-term strategy. And then you get it like, what I always enjoyed about talking with you is like, you have it so dialed in that you know exactly how many leads you need to close a deal. And then it's just a numbers game.
yeah, that's probably one of the only good things that I am when it comes to this. I'm good at tracking the numbers. I can't even say I'm really great at following up or even teaching my agents how to follow up. That's a skill that, like, Al Lewis I had on the podcast a few weeks ago, who uses your company and
Yeah.
succeeds at a high level, way higher than I do at that part of his business. But like, that's something I need to learn. But the one thing I've really held tight to is like knowing the numbers. Like, just so everybody knows, like I have a spreadsheet that it says how much I'm spending every single month, right? So like my assistant looks on my company credit card every single month and she puts any asterisk fees, right? She puts any Google or Bing fees. And then we put our Real Geeks, which is our website fee, on there. So like I know on a spreadsheet throughout the year how much is being spent on that project of pay-per-click. And then I've got another spreadsheet where we put all of our closed transactions that we close from pay-per-click.
Right.
And you just simply right there, you can see it when you're like, okay, I spent $25,000 and I got, $98,000 that came through the door. You can clearly see right there that is like that's a business right there. Now figuring out how to scale that over time is another art form, but you can see where, okay, I'm spending 26, I'm making 96, like that works, right?
Right.
So we just keep track of that on spreadsheets, and then we have to decide, do we want more lead flow for the team? Should we drop down the leads? Do we need to get better at converting? So there is a lot of art form, like I said, that happens after someone hires your company, but you can't get better at it until you just start doing it. And then as you start doing it every single month, you start learning like which metrics you want to track better. Like there's still things I know that 2 years ago I didn't keep track of that I do now.
Right.
And I know in 2 years, there's probably going to be things that I keep track of that I'm not keeping track of now, but that's just as a company gets bigger.
Right.
And so, but what do you, I want to hear your opinion on this, because it's kind of funny and comical when I see this in like Facebook groups, when people are like, the leads are bad.
It's always the lead.
Anytime someone says leads are bad, I'm like, I don't know, you might be bad. Like this might be more of an internal game that you want to look at, not an outward game. But what are your thoughts on that when people say that?
Yeah, that's a very common reason people will leave, is the quality of leads. But to me, that just doesn't make sense, because we're sending the same lead type to almost every single person, right? The leads are typing in, yeah, the market's gonna be a little bit different, but they're typing in very similar things. In a lot of cases, they're going to the exact same websites. So how can someone be so successful and other people just can't do anything with these leads. So it's in some cases, it takes a little bit longer, but the leads are the leads, right? It's people who have expressed intent online. So as a realtor, it is your job to be able to close those. And a lot of things, people, it's the lead, just because they're not ready to buy means they're bad quality, right? Which is 100% not accurate. It's like 7 months from now, they could be ready to buy, and now they're an amazing lead, right? So the difference is just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's, yeah,
yeah, I look at it as people who are like, okay, well, let's say open houses. Like if you could have, most people can't get 100 people through an open house in a month, right? But I'm like, if you had 100 people, like if a realtor went and sat open house, which a lot of them do, and had 100 people in a month come through an open house, would you ever say, oh, 98 of those were bad leads?
right.
No, you would tout like, oh my gosh, I had 100 people come through my open house, but like 98 of those people probably weren't transacting today, and 2 or 3 of those probably were, right? But it's so like I look at my mindset on pay-per-click is a little bit different than most. Like I'm looking at it as a leverage game of my time, because I'm okay spending, like for example, an open house, let's say it's 3 hours. And then let's say lead generating pay-per-click leads every single day is 3 hours. I look at it and say, which one do I can control, right? Like I don't want to do it on Saturday. I want it to fit in my window of time. And that's what I see differently about like open houses versus pay-per-click is you get to control more of your follow-up on when you're doing it, more of like a business, and it's controlled around your hours, where like open houses and things have to be done like usually in the evenings and on the weekends. But to go back to the leads are bad, I'm just like, no, those are people that Googled like Phoenix homes for sale with pools, landed on your website and clicked it. So I mean, a company can't go in there. Like when big data figures that out, like only send these realtors
Right.
leads that are buying houses. When big data figures that out, that's the day that we as realtors have probably lost, right? So it's like our art, we have to have an art form of when a lead comes to the door, we've got to know how to still, figure out their needs and, hey, when are you moving? Why are you moving? And figure out how to be a good person, like a good salesperson, and getting them through this funnel of like buying a house, right?
Yeah. And I think it's just, I'm not a real estate agent, obviously, so I can't speak to a lot of it. But to me, I can speak from like a sales standpoint. I did cold calling for a year, so I know what that's like. But it's like I don't think your mindset can be like, how can we get an appointment right away, right? How can we make a sale as quick as possible? Mm-hmm. It's how can we best serve them and build a relationship, especially on the first call, right? Like you're just trying to help someone. And then naturally, with good follow-up, it progresses into a sale. It's when you are just trying to go after it right away. Yeah. I think a lot of people will falter, and then it just comes down to expectations. Like if you're assuming every lead is going to have to be ready tomorrow, then that's just not what the PPC game is about. It's a long-term thing. It can have short-term wins for sure. A lot of our clients close a deal in 3 to 4 months, and that usually sets them up for a year in terms of what they're spending. But again, it can be a year, it can be 2 years out when these people are closing. So having follow-up, drips in place, monthly emails, see who's visiting your website, give them a call, make notes, like all of that is extremely important.
Yeah, I know when I make calls to people, I kind of change my whole initial first call to them, right? And I wanted to create the win for me in my head, because if you're looking at it like, does this person buy a house right after you get off the phone with them? That can be disappointing, right? So I looked at the win as, can I set up their search for them? For example, you get a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm just browsing. And I looked at that as, my win is just, can I set up your search? And I say like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad you're on my website browsing versus all the other ones. So what are you browsing for? Oh, well, I don't even really know when I'm moving there. Okay, well, if you were moving here, what would you buy? Right. And I'm kind of playing the simulation game, but I actually joke with them and I'm like, hey, let's just act as if like you were coming here in a year or two, like most of my clients do when they come onto the website. And I'll give them one quick story and be like, hey, Steve, I just closed, like I just closed on Steve last week, and he's from Washington, and I met him 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, he said, "Hey, Chris, I don't know really when I'm moving there." And I said, "Hey, what if you were moving here in 2 years? What would you be looking for?" And he told me this area, and I set it up for him. And all of a sudden, Steve closed on his house last year. So let's act like you're him. And
Right.
so I'm just kind of not being the salesperson to him. I'm kind of being a little animated in a way, and I'm telling him a story of, "Hey, what if you were like this guy Steve that was on my site 2 years ago who told me he wasn't buying a house?" And I said, "Let me just act like you were. What would you be looking for?"
Right.
And don't get me wrong, that doesn't work for everybody, but I find that the ones that close houses with us through pay-per-click, that's usually how the process worked. And it was just by saying, "Hey, if you were going to be moving here, what would you be looking for?" And then I kind of go into, "Well, I'm going to be sending you homes through the website every single day. So since I'm already going to be sending them to you, outside of unsubscribing from me, could I at least send you things that you think would be of interest whenever you're moving, whether it's tomorrow or in 9 years? And I'll
Right.
probably be in the business for 26 more years. Therefore, if you buy within that range, cool. After that, I'll be out of business. I'll be closed." And I just make all these jokes with them where I'm just getting them to try to laugh a little bit
Yeah.
and realize like I'm not trying to get you to sign a contract with me today. But I found that that's the best way to, then you can edit their search. And then once you edit their search, then like whatever website you're using will send them homes every day and get them things that they really want. I think the homes do a lot of the heavy
100%.
lifting. The homes will do, like when people talk about follow up, I'm like, you do need to have good follow up. Like having homes that really fit their needs of what their desires are, like that does the heavy lifting, because I have found that you can't usually sell somebody into a home that they don't want, but you can usually email somebody a home that they love, and then they'll be interested in talking to you about looking at that property. But
Yeah. No, that's such a soft opening too, right?
yeah,
That's all your goal is trying to get them on a safe search. And I 100% agree with you. I think that's where a lot of, because with a lot of systems, they just kind of set you up based on what you've looked at, and it's not really accurate, right? So if I'm getting an email every day of properties I don't really want to see, I'm gonna stop opening them, right? I'm gonna unsubscribe. So getting an accurate saved search that's critical.
yeah, it's just goal one. So what do you so like a lot of times people will say when I'm talking to them about pay-per-click is like, I'm gonna try to do this myself.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked a little bit about some stuff that you're doing now to try to help people who, maybe want to, try to do pay-per-click on their own. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if someone wants to try it themselves, 100%. So go for it. There's a couple things I would tell them to watch out for, like Google support, because they will call you and they will offer some poor advice. But we get that people want to maybe set some things up. So maybe they do want to set up their own PPC account, or they want to do their own Google My Business. So that's one of the reasons that we have started putting together this community and all of these resources, where we're actually going to show you how we go about setting up accounts. So how we set up all of our clients, over hundreds and hundreds of pay-per-click clients. So we'll show you how we set those up, how we go about optimizing them. Google My Business or Google Business Profile, like how you set those up, search engine optimizations, how do we write blogs that rank. So we are going to open that up to people to come check out, a whole community. You can ask us questions, stuff like that. It's never going to replace professionals, right? Like, I think everyone knows that. But it can help the people that want to get their feet wet, want to learn a little more, want to do one service and let another professional company do another. So that's gonna help you with that.
Right on. I just don't, maybe I'm just wired differently, but I just don't get the whole do it yourself. I've never been to any mastermind of like a uber successful realtor that was on stage that just said, yeah, I did all, like, I send out all my letters and postcards and I do all my pay-per-click. Cause I'm like, at the end of the day, that's the hard part about being in real estate, or probably any business, is like our job is just help people buy and sell homes. All that behind the scenes, it's so much. And then so it's like, then the next layer is, okay, I help people buy and sell homes. Then the next, like the next layer is lead follow-up every day. That's already a job within itself. So I'm like, to actually go transact with people, buyers and sellers, and then have to daily follow up with leads. I just can't imagine tackling the next layer is, getting the leads to come to the door. I look at you as like, I'm not the mailman. Like I wouldn't go put all my postcards that I send out to my network every single day in their mailbox. Like I wouldn't drive around and be like, oh, I could save, 57 cents if I just drive and get these postcards into all, like, that's how I look at it when people tell me they're going to do their own pay-per-click. I'm like, I don't know. Like you might spend a lot more money by not I ask them, I'm like, are you going to, like, would you do for sale by owner too? Like, do you not value like someone who's so experienced at their job
right.
that they can save you time and money? That's just my opinion.
No, I know that's an argument, or that's something I say to people too, right? It's like you can DIY anything. Like I could sell my own house. A lot of people try to sell their own house, but knowing what I know, I could be missing out on thousands of dollars, right? Not doing something. And it's such a big asset. Obviously, PPC is a little bit different, but the thing is too, like we're not just a PPC company. So we often tell our clients about other things, other services, new updates. And some of those things, like we were one of the very first, or not, sorry, I shouldn't say we were one of the very first, but local service ads, local service ads.
Yeah.
So that's when someone types in Phoenix real estate agent, and then you see those little images come up and it's pay per lead versus pay per click. Mm-hmm. But that, like almost immediately after that got introduced, we started telling all of our clients, right? So now if someone didn't, and those people were killing it right away because it was so new. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have someone in your corner looking out for that stuff, then that can be you're missing out on a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I also say, like, yeah, you could do your own PPC, but you don't have an agency following all the latest trends and all of these different things that you could be missing out on.
Yeah. Tell me a few success stories of realtors that you work with. Just, I mean, you don't have to name their names if you don't want to, or you can, but like, just give me some, I want everybody to just get a feel for like what some of these people are doing that are probably through like their, hiring you in your company.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I use Al Lewis a lot because he's probably one of our biggest success stories. I think we've been working together for like 3 years, but I think he's done, in the first year, he did close to $1 million in GCI. I might be a little bit off on that, but he closes at like a 2 or 3% closing rate.
Yeah, that's unheard of. I wish I could get anywhere
15,
close to that.
20 to 1 return. So it's like, and he's got his follow-up and systems dialed in. And similar to you, it just becomes a number game. As he adds more team members, he's like, I need to spend this much more to get this many more closings, and this is what it's going to return me.
Yeah. And what's interesting is because, obviously we're good at what we do, therefore we get referrals. And I don't think enough people keep track of that, right? So like pay-per-click brings me in business, right? And I make a profit off pay-per-click. But then the thing that I don't, I can't keep track of everything, but I do just glance every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, okay. So for example, about 13 months ago, closed on a client who was through pay-per-click, 1.1 million, right?
Yeah.
Closed on him. He was through pay-per-click. Super simple. Came into the system. He actually followed up with me. That was slam dunk, right? Said, I'm moving from Florida. I got to get to Scottsdale. Closed on his house. He never even saw it. 1.1. Good to go. Then it was about 3 weeks ago, I closed on a client, Pete. Well, Roger referred me to Pete. And so on my spreadsheet, it says referral from Roger, right? So it's actually categorized as a referral, but I have to I dig deep on those referrals. And I look and I'm like, that actually to me is a referral, right? Because that was doing good business for someone and they referred you out.
Right.
But I go another layer and I'm like, no, like that also has to give some credit to pay-per-click, because without pay-per-click, I would have never have met Roger. Therefore, I couldn't even have did good service. So, and it's the same with our Zillow account. We pay a pretty decent amount for those. And I look at that and say, like, these are ways to these are ways to be introduced to people that you would never be introduced to. And then you can go do good business for them. Once you do good
100%.
business for them, then do your good follow-up, client appreciation parties, your postcards, your home bots, whatever you do with your past clients. And then they come back to you as repeat clients, and then they refer you out to people. So it's like you're just looking for ways as a business to get new leads through the door every day, do good service for people, and then figure out, how do I get repeat business from them in the future, and how do I get them to go spread my name throughout the year? And so you're just one avenue. And I think that's what everyone needs to realize, is you're just one avenue, and they can pick open houses, radio ads. They could farm a neighborhood with postcards. Like you eventually got to pick like 2 or 3 of these and figure out how to get more leads to come through the door if you want to close more transactions. Right. And that's how I was introduced to you. Was I was doing about 60 referrals a year. And it was just straight all referrals. Like I'm a super solid, highly profitable business, all referrals. And it was the day that I woke up and said, hey, I want to close 100 plus, but I want to close 100 plus and still keep my profit margin high. And I had 2 angles that I was going to add to get there. It was Zillow and it was pay-per-click. And we executed both of those and did it pretty well. But I think what's like the most interesting part of that story was it started off with saying, I want to close more deals. And I was looking at my business and saying, it's hard to organically scale a referral business, right? It's really hard to scale a referral business. Like you can't naturally and organically just go like on a spreadsheet and say, oh, I want to, instead of 60 referrals this year, I want 150. Like good luck calling your network and telling them what you want from them. You're going to not close.
Refer me a little more, please.
Refer me more, please. You're not referring me enough to hit my business goals. So you got to take what they give you. And then you've got to add sources like pay-per-click or whatever else to get that extra 20, 30, or 40. And then as you do that, then you'll start getting more and more referrals. And that's really all you're doing to scale a company. So what do you think people's biggest challenges are with running like internet style or pay-per-click businesses?
Like when agents start pay-per-click, what are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, like what are their biggest challenges?
I think we kind of touched on a few. I think one is not investing enough into them.
Okay.
Right. It's kind of seeing how it goes, right? Like, let's see how it goes first, right? I want a few leads, see how they interact. But that typically what I say to people too is like, if you're only getting a few leads, it's not working, you're not going to come back to me 4 months and say, yeah, it's not working, let's spend more, right? You're on the flip side, if you start investing more into yourself, more into leads, you get a better sample size. You can always scale back after that, right? If it becomes too much. So you want to give yourself a big enough, large enough lead and database to really get a full sense of what PPC can be.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing we talked about too is, what are your expectations coming in, right? If you're expecting all of them to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Chris, yeah, I'd love to sell my home, or yeah, let's go see a home tomorrow, then in reality, that's not what's going to happen, right? So you got to know that some people are not going to answer. Some people are going to give you fake information, but you focus on the ones you can get a hold of, you can have a good relationship, build a good rapport, and then just giving it enough time, right? Like in reality, you should be giving this thing at least a year before you say, this isn't working for me. And it's extremely rare someone after a year will pause. Yeah. Maybe they'll scale it down, or maybe they scale it up, but it's very, very rare that they would pause after a year because they have seen an ROI.
Right.
Like I don't have the stats offhand, but it's maybe like 1 or 2% of people will pause.
Okay. And from the agent standpoint, I think it's good to know, like when you go into doing online leads, is compartmentalize business. Like even when I talk to my coach, like we have a P&L for referrals, we have a P&L for pay-per-click, we have a P&L for Zillow. Like we almost look at those as 3 different companies, because we can't blend it together, because then you really can't make good decisions. But from the agent standpoint, it's even from the lead conversion side of it, like come into it with a different perspective of, like, I have to realize that when somebody texts me and says my friend is buying a house, that is a slam dunk, easy. I get about 95 of those a year, and I wish I got 200 a year. But like we said, it gives me about 95 a year. I have to compartmentalize that. That's my most profitable side of my company. It's the easiest side of my company. When I call that person for the first time, the trust is already transferred from the person who referred me to them. It's like, it's simple.
Right.
When you're doing this side, you do look at it and you're like, okay, I am paying to acquire the lead. So there's like a customer acquisition cost. It took me, I had a call for an hour or two a day for the whole entire year to close 24 of these.
Right.
And so you start looking at that, like you have to compartmentalize your efforts. And I and understand and be realistic that when you look at things and you say, yes, that side of my business is easier.
Right.
But I'm also not going to sit here. I can't cry over it and say, well, that side's easier. I want more. Like no one's out there listening to my temper tantrum when I say that side's easier. I want more.
Right.
Like when I made goals of what I want to accomplish, it's, hey, I want this, and this section's going to be easier. This section's going to be harder. And we've got to fight to now go hit our goals. But I think I just wanted to bring that up from like the agent's perspective of just come into this when they hire you and realize that this is different than your mom calling you to sell their house, right? Like this isn't just a slam dunk.
Right. And you're like, it works too, right? It works for you where you have referrals, but then like you mentioned, it's hard to control those. So what if next year you only get 30 referrals, right?
Sure.
But now you have this other source of income where you can say, okay, I'm already have a system in place. Now I need to spend more and I know I'm going to get more. So I can still hit my goals, right? Or it's an agent who doesn't have a lot of referrals. This is a good thing to do to start building up that database and get leads in the door, and then they can start building referrals. So, I mean, obviously you want multiple sources coming in of leads. That's
that's what impressed me about Al. And like I said, he was on about, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago. So people, you can go back and listen to that if you want to listen to somebody who's knocking it out of the park using your services. But he was a realtor for many years in Illinois, then moved to Florida and then knocked it out of the park. So this is why I bring this up a lot, because I teach a lot of classes here in Arizona, and agents will be like, they'll be 47 years old, lived there their whole entire life, went to high school here, grade school, well connected, and be like, I just want to figure out how to close like 15 or 20 homes a year. And I'm like, how can Al go into a city he's never been in his life,
right,
and just go dominate the game through internet leads? But it just shows you that there's somebody that lives in Florida right now that's been there their whole entire life for 54 years that can't close 10 homes a year. But Al just moved in there and dominated it. So it just it almost is an eye opener that this isn't so much about the market, and it's probably about you. It's about you as the realtor being good at what you do, waking up every day with some drive to close some business. And so that's what I would argue is like, why is he succeeding there when someone who's been there their whole entire life is not? And it's because Al has a lot of drive when he got there, and he's going to accomplish what he's going to accomplish. And the person that's lived there for 57 years is just like, no, like I want that, but I'm not willing to put in the work to get there. And that's really, if they were honest and looked in the mirror, that's what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another thing about the lead. Are they crappy leads, right? No.
Right. Yeah.
You're not closing them or don't have the drive to do it. So let's call a spade what spade is.
Yep. There you go. Well, how can people get in contact with you to learn more about your company, how you can help them, and actually all the other services? Like I know I leaned hard into the pay-per-click side of your company. I know you have a lot of other things you offer, and I apologize. I just wanted to make this one a lot about pay-per-click because that's what I do with you the most. But how can they get in contact with you and learn more?
Yeah, so they can go to our website. I'm not sure if you can link it somewhere, but asteriskmarketing.co. You can also email us at info@asteriskmarketing.co. If you just go Google Asterisk Marketing, we should come up. Those are probably the best ways to reach out to us.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, we'll have all that information in the show notes. So
awesome.
I want everybody to think about whether you want to get more business. If this resonated with you, just go on there, click on the links in the show notes and reach out to you and learn more. I just lean into it.
And there's a couple things. If you go on our website, there's a free tool section. We can do a free a free website marketing review. So we'll just kind of look at your website, look at your Facebook, and provide our feedback with a live video. And then also we have a free PPC calculator tool where you can actually punch in kind of how much you want to make, and then it spits out what you need to spend in order to hit that goal.
There we go, man. I thank you so much for jumping on today, the
Yeah, thanks for
podcast.
having me, Chris.
You, I think you helped out a lot of people who are trying to just get, 10, 15, 20 more deals. I think this could be their solution. So that's why I wanted to have you on.
I appreciate it, man.
Right on, buddy. You have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye.